So here we are again. We have our default screen. Again, Alt, move things around. I'm going to create, once again, a polygon, not a NURBS, a polygon primitive cube, frame it, zoom it out a bit, and here is our starting point. Now, there's a couple ways I can go about this. Instead of trying to give you an overall of how everything works, I think it's better to work practically. And so, since this is technically a modeling exercise, a modeling course, and I am a sculptor, I'm going to go right into the sculpting side of things. You can see up here they've got sculpting, animation, rigging, visual effects. That just changes your hotkey menu here. You can actually change this, shelf to disappear if you really wanted to by pressing this over here. But I'll leave it up there for now, again, leaving things exactly as they are so it's not too complicated. Remember, we went to create our components by selecting this button here, and WER will give you different ways to modify that. I want to introduce another way to do that. If I went back to my F8 command and I were to select on this or not, I can right-click on this. I can right-click on this, and it'll give me another pop-up menu. Vertex, edge, face. So let's just see what all these things are. A vertex you already have seen. You can grab one and you can move it around. Again, right-click. Edge will give you see how it highlights, will give you this. If you want to select more than one, you press Shift and you select another one. If you want to deselect one, you press Control. So again, selecting another one, so you can select two. You can select more than one by going Shift, 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 and it'll move a whole bunch of them. Again, you rotate around using your Alt. Last but not least is the face. You can see how it selected the whole. It does it by color. In the olden days, it had like a little dot there, but you see how that's selected now. And if I rotate around, I can lift that whole selection up. You can see it moving by moving it around. So that's pretty important to see how those components are selected. The reason why is because we're going to go and we're going to basically start making something out of this cube. Just as there were some hotkeys here for modeling, there's also, if I went to animation, for example, different ways to get this file menu toolbar, whatever you want to call it, up here to change is by pressing this over here. So again, these are sort of secondary. There's actually another one. If you hold down your space bar, you'll see there's a whole bunch of options here, and that's actually just all these put together on your space bar. So again, remember you were saying there's many ways to skin a cat. All these are the same functions, and so it's better to learn how to use them in hotkeys, and that way you can be quicker. That's why sometimes instead of going in there and going, okay, select this, for example, and then go into modify, transformation, rotate, right? Instead of doing that, it's better to select it and press R or T or R, W, E, or R, and that will give you the quick keys, hotkeys to therefore change those settings. Anyway, so I also want to introduce you to mesh tools. So this is considered a mesh. If I go to my press 4, the number 4, you'll see that basically it gets rid of the shading that's on there. 5 gives you shading. Now F4 and F5 are important because when we start talking about the mesh tools, we have things like multi-cut and insert edge tools. Strangely enough, you'll see that it pops up over here when it's being activated. So if I were to actually select on this, you'll see that I pressed a button right there, and it actually added in this edge loop around the whole thing. So I can't see the whole thing unless I go 4. 4 gives me the ability to see this all the way around. So that's why having 5 and 4 are important. It allows you to see the whole model. Some people have difficulty seeing the screen, but eventually you do get used to it when you start seeing it like this versus like this. Also useful. Now I can't unselect this until I press something like the Q key or this cursor button in the corner. That allows me then to go in there and select something like the multi-cut tool, and I can select very individual spots. Now look, if I do this and I go delete, it'll undo that selection right there, and I can put it in a different spot. If I rotate it around, I'm actually adding in and slicing up this model, and it's showing me kind of in this sort of almost like a back face showing way where I've been, despite the fact that it's not showing me the whole model. Obviously I can see the whole model by doing this, but this is where it starts getting, you have to get sort of used to the fact that you're seeing these back edges as well. But anyway, you can keep adding in around all you want, and then you can stop at a certain spot and press enter, and that will give you your shape. Now, just like you added in those points, you can also delete them. So if I didn't like something like this, I can actually then right click and try and grab that face. But you'll see that I can't grab that face. And the reason is, and this is sort of a new thing, is I have to select out of this tool by pressing this or pressing Q. Now when I selected, it put in another vertice right there. I don't want that vertice, so I could either undo the commands by doing Command Z, which undoes things, or I can go in there and let's just say I redo this. There's also, instead of doing undo here, you can redo this. So I redid it, and I can go in there and I'm going to select this point, right? Let's select that point like this. Now, if I go to 4 and I were to select this point again, you'd see that I'd select right through and I'd be selecting 2 points. So that's why sometimes when you're selecting points or even selecting edges, you want to be doing it in the mesh not shaded mode, and that way you can select just this, make sure it's just that selected, and then you press delete and you can get rid of that point. Again, right clicking on here and selecting edge will allow me to select an edge. There's an edge selected. Now if I want to select a different edge, I can press shift, and another one, another one, another one, and if I do command, I can unselect something. And then I press delete, gets rid of those different ones. So again, if I did it only through this command where I had just the shading done and I selected these edges by doing this, those are selected, but at the same time you'll see that the ones back there are selected as well. And you may not want that, so you control and you unselect those over there, and now you're left with just those, and you can delete those. And I'll give you that. To view the work, sometimes it's not finished in this mode, although it looks like it's kind of cool and you may want it, and for some reason it may not actually be done. A lot of times you're building things and you want to view what it's like when it's kind of done. Most people build in this sort of rough cage-like form, and then they press the 2 button and they show the result. The 2 button just gives you a preview of what it will be like if you were to actually take the surface and smooth it out. So smooth is under, let's just find it quickly. I thought it was under surfaces. It doesn't look like it is. It must be under mesh. So mesh, smooth, can't smooth it because I'm in component mode right here. So we'll go into either press F8 or press this button here and go into object mode, and again press smooth, and it smooths it right down into this here. Now, very, very cool. There's a divisions thing right here that gives you, and you can actually just change that and make it far denser by increasing the number of divisions you might want. But for now, we don't need to do that. We can actually undo all this and leave it the way it is, because we are just going to basically model in this mode and learn some more techniques while we build something.